Murder victim Kay O'Connor's body was found next to a bloodied knife in her kitchen in March 1974. She had been beaten and strangled, and some of her clothes were removed. The shorthand typist, who lived in Wickham Road, Colchester, was also stabbed. More than 2,000 statements were taken in connection with the brutal murder, and a further 339 people were questioned. But despite detectives' best efforts, no charges were ever brought. Charge nurse Patrick Marin was the police's main suspect. Although the killing shocked the town and received high-profile coverage, her murderer was never caught. As a second-year medical student at Ohio State, 27-year-old Brian Schaefer had a bright future ahead of him. On April 1, 2006, when a night on the town to celebrate the beginning of spring break ended in his disappearance. On March 31, 2006, Brian Schaefer and his roommate walked to the Ugly Tuna Saloon bar in Columbus. Around 10 p.m., Schaefer called his girlfriend to confirm their trip and to tell her that he loved her. At 2 a.m., and was seen chatting easily with two women in their 20s before vanishing. During the first few days of his disappearance, up to 50 cops searched for him at any one time. No trace of Brian has ever been found. It was June 20, 1890, in Elko, a mining and ranching town in the northeast corner of Nevada. Josiah and Elizabeth Potts were hanged simultaneously, side by side. They had murdered Miles Fawcett, a neighbor and long-time acquaintance who, like the Potts, had migrated to America. It marked the first and only time a woman was legally executed in any fashion in the Silver State. Miles Fawcett drove his rig into town and visited the Potts. He went inside the house and was never seen again. His sudden disappearance didn't cause any great stir. George Brewer investigated the cellar. He found human remains. After the Potts moved to Wyoming. The Bath riots occurred in January at the Santa Fe Bridge between El Paso, Texas and Juarez, Mexico. Sparked by new immigration policies at the El Paso and Juarez, requiring Mexicans crossing the border to take day housing baths and be vaccinated. Reports that nude photographs of women bathers and fear of potential fire from the kerosene baths led Carmelita Torres to refuse to submit to the procedure. The women began shouting and hurling stones at health and immigration officials, sentries and civilians who had gathered to watch the disturbance. One cable car motorman and a male coach driver were reported to have been beaten by rioters, and several media movie makers were attacked. Beverly England vanished the morning of the 12th of June 1980. The same day, she was supposed to meet her lover's wife in Salida's Riverside Park. At the time, there was speculation about what had become of the 32-year-old married mother of two young children. Had she abandoned her children by moving out of town? Had she been killed? In 2018, England's bones were discovered on Mount Shavano in Chaffee County, and investigators believe relics found near her remains will help them figure out how she died and possibly lead to suspects. A team of forensic anthropologists, FBI specialists, discovered bones believed to be England's remains, but as yet her murder is still unsolved. Alice Barton was 49 years old when she was horrifically murdered and her body dumped in a wartime pillbox in Defender, Valley area of Woodchurch in Birkenhead. She was believed to have been staying, in the days before her murder, at St Winifred's Hotel, situated at the junction of Knowsley Road and Rimrose Road in Bootle. Just before noon on Saturday, September 24, 1955, 11-year-old Peter Williams found the body of a woman, with clothes piled on top of her face and 3 obscene words scrawled on her torso. It was thought that by the time she was found that she had been dead for 2 or 3 days. Her murder is still unsolved. On the 4th of July 1863, a terrible murder occurred in the Coy family house in Medina, Ohio. Neighbors saw that the house of Mr. Shubal Coy was on fire. When they entered to rescue the family, they found the bodies of Mr. and Mrs. Coy and their son. Mr. Coy and Mrs. Coy were found dead in their bed, and the little boy of 7 or 8 years, also lying in his blood. The throat of the boy was cut skillfully, nearly half round the neck, but the neck of Mrs. Coy is cut not only at the throat, but there are some rough cuts on the side and back. The murders of the Coy family have never been solved. David Harker had met mum for Julie Patterson in 1998. One night after drinking with Harker in a local park, 32-year-old Julie was lured back to his flat in Darlington's Harewood Grove. Harker confided to a psychiatrist that he chopped up his victim and ate part of her body with pasta and cheese. He strangled mother for Julie Patterson with her tights after he got bored during a sex session. He told psychiatrists he then had sex with her before chopping off her head and limbs, slicing flesh from her thigh, skinning it and cooking it. The killer bragged about his cannibal feast and claimed to be a serial killer. After Julie's death, he boasted that he had killed 2 other people. Elizabeth Berry was a 31-year-old widow who worked as a nurse in Oldham Workhouse, for which she was paid £25 per annum. Out of this sum, she paid £12 a year to her sister-in-law, who looked after Elizabeth's daughter, 11-year-old Edith Annie. Edith was invited to spend a few days with her mother at the workhouse, and she and one of her school friends duly arrived on Wednesday the 29th of December 1886. By the following Tuesday, Edith was dead, poisoned by her mother. Elizabeth was arrested and found guilty of the willful murder of her daughter. She received a mandatory death sentence. The 31-year-old was the first person to be executed at Walton Prison in Liverpool. Veronica Anderson was a mother of 2, a son and daughter. The family lived in Hadfield Close in the town of Withs, Cheshire, and on Saturday, August 24, 1991, Veronica received a telephone call. Veronica asked a neighbor to babysit her son while she popped out. At about 10:30 p.m., a woman strongly matching her description was seen in the company of a man at the Crown and Cushion pub on Warrington Road, Penketh. On Sunday, August, Veronica's body was found parked up at the old tannery complex. She heavily blood-stained and slumped over the steering wheel. She had been murdered by having had her throat cut, and signs of strangulation. Her murder has never been solved.